Stop in at the restaurant on France Avenue and 45th Street along the Minneapolis-Edina City line, or check them out at greatwallrestaurant.us.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Broadcasting from the studios of AM 950 KETNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and airing on WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk where facts matter. Welcome to The Gailey Show, the only daily LGBTQ radio news and talk show in the United States. I'm your host, John Parker, also reporter for AM 950 Radio, in the studio with my executive producer, Jim Pounds.
Hey, y'all.
If you hear me talking even faster than normal today, we've got a really big show. At the bottom of the hour, U.S. Senate candidate for Alabama, Dakarai Larriett, will be joining us. But up first, over the weekend on Saturday, we had 37 reports of ICE activity on people over papers. On Sunday, we had 49 reports. And as a reminder, at its height, we were seeing about 400 reports per day, sometimes over 500. Also, as a reminder, ICE is leaving a small force of agents here in Minnesota. Per Representatives Ilhan Omar and Angie Craig on Friday, DHS reportedly told them less than 500 agents remain. Please know, as we continue to say here on AM 950 Radio, that number has not been independently verified, and DHS repeatedly lies to Congress and to the media. Prior to Operation Metro Surge, the total number of ICE agents in Minnesota was 150, according to Governor Walz. Still a lot of activity happening outside of the Twin Cities, more into the suburbs in greater Minnesota, where there are fewer legal observers. But to talk more about the drawdown, we are now joined by Emilia Gonzalez Avalos, who leads Unidos Minnesota with a deep commitment to building multiracial, multi-generational community power. Emilia believes in the collective capacity of Minnesota's Black, Brown, Indigenous, immigrant, white, and working class communities to drive systemic change. As executive director of Unidos Minnesota, she's helped grow the organization from a small local program into a statewide movement organization, opening space for new leaders to rise and communities to win policy changes. Emilia, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Jim and John. Thank you for having me. Hello, everybody who's listening.
All right, and streaming actually on our YouTube channel right now. So our viewers there as well. Emilia, so Unidos Minnesota has been at the forefront of organizing to, help us get through ICE targeting Minnesota. And then we saw Operation Metro Surge. Unidos Minnesota was at the forefront of helping to get ICE out of Minnesota. ICE is sort of leaving Minnesota. What is your take on that? What are you seeing from your vantage point?
I mean, I think that, first of all, I want to share that I am an immigrant from Mexico, and I came to Minnesota when I was 12 years old. So history, my formation in Minnesota, I love history, and the learning of the civil rights movement with this identity as an immigrant who is from Mexico City was deeply informed by movements of liberation in Latin America. And so when we're living in a pre-consolidation of authoritarian power, there's this author, her name is Naomi Klein, who wrote this book called The Shock Doctrine. Yeah. She, in the many sources of knowledge that she puts in the book, argues that in order to orient and ground ourselves, we must look at history, we must look at the past. And so because of that grounding, I can argue that the fully visible, shocking tone that the enforcement used at the beginning of the year in different levels throughout last year, 2025, is evolving into a different strategy. We know that Minnesotans helped make sure that this authoritarian force will pay political consequences in public media, in the global sphere, in mainstream. It's not just pro-immigrant or progressive ecosystem organizations who are with us denouncing the cruelty, denouncing the overreach of this agency. Now it's people who have never gone to a protest, or businesses who are having a very different experience because their bottom line and the erosion of their Fourth Amendment right has brought them into this reality where this theme has, like, you want to call it politicized, but like it just brought the stakes for a broad general population. And so I think that they're not done. They definitely have reduced the elements of the force in the office that serves. Like, let's remind ourselves, the Whipple Building office serves Minnesota, Wisconsin, North and South Dakota. And so these reduction in numbers, in my opinion, are not over. It's not that the agenda for mass deportation is over. It's just that they know that there could be political consequences in the midterm elections, and they are trying to redirect the population into the quote-unquote Somali fraud, quote-unquote Minnesota fraud, free our futures, and all this perception that the state cannot be strong, cannot be accountable, mistrust of government is their playing field. And so we went from speaking about fraud in September, October, November, to now nobody now is buying the bait of the fraud. People have evolved culturally and are very concerned about the tactics, the rhetoric, and the lies that have been used. And so I think it's just retrieve to realign a strategy, maybe continue to seduce the electorate so that they can expand and consolidate more power. But definitely, if what's in front of us is the responsibility that now we have this very loud block of people that has to consolidate a majority that can carry political consequences in Minnesota and across the country. Because if we don't, the mass deportation agenda and the restructuring of the economy that is not going to work anymore for working families will definitely become more vicious, do more overreach, and be more vile after November. So that's what I think. That's what we have seen in other places, in other countries. What we know is that even some of the like there are things that have been exposed. The hollow narrative about fraud, the use of surveillance on citizens, and the expansion of overreach, given the discretion of the Patriot Act. Like this is old discretion, and now we know that whomever has power can use that discretion even against its own citizens with the threat of national security. And so it's flushing out that the need that as we continue to organize for deep structural reforms in healthcare, in security, in immigration, like economic systems, education, we also now have to look at the guardrails and the security systems that the Patriot Act helped solidify 20 years ago, and how that actually impact surveillance of citizens, the surveillance of citizens, and the regulation of AI. So that's kind of like where I am.
Right. So, I mean, this is a really interesting point that you're bringing to us, which is that it's not ending because it was the wrong thing to do, that they're sort of pausing it right now. Do you have a fear then that if the Republican Party, MAGA essentially, were to retain control of Congress after November, that they would just come back in and ramp up again?
Yes. I think history tells us that. Patterns tells us that. The reforms that they want to advance tell us that. And now we have a lot more of us, like so many Minnesotans know someone who has been on the streets and has been surveilled, who has showed up as an observer and has been mistreated, or who has been disappeared for a few hours because they were embodying their first constitutional rights. And so this is in the preempt of midterm elections. I don't want to imagine what can happen if the rest of the electorate says that this is the direction in which the country needs to go and gives them even more power.
Mm-hmm. So this week is a big week of action for Unidos Minnesota. Can you speak to what your organization and the coalition is going to be working on in this particular week? Because you've all been doing a lot of work for the past year. What's this week your focus?
Yes, well, this week is bringing all these experiences, what happened in all of our communities into the Capitol. We need to make sure that nobody forgets that 2 people were publicly killed for exercising their First Amendment rights, that not only that crime happened in the streets and we have evidence of that, but the federal government tried to scrutinize and call them terrorists. And that a lot of the legislators who enable that are sitting in seats that are directly accountable to Minnesota taxpayer dollars. So we need to bring those stories to those chambers, to the committees. We need to continue to push as much as we can for a bipartisan effort to protect what we believe is not partisan, which is constitutional rights. Mm-hmm. It is, no matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat, the Constitution was not created for us to be meek or to have positive opinions only about government. They were created in case we had disagreements in this project we call democracy.
Mm-hmm.
May I ask a question?
We've got under 30
Oh,
seconds.
all right. No, I'll wait.
But I do want to point out to that there is a committee hearing happening right now, co-chaired by Representative Eric Garcia from California, about an ICE lawyer saying that new agents were being specifically trained to ignore constitutional rights. This is a person who trained as legal advisor in ICE, testifying this hour right now to Congress about how they were trained specifically to ignore constitutional rights of Americans. Amelia, how do folks connect with your organization if they want to participate in the actions you're taking this week?
So the easiest way is to follow through our social media, Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. We have the links to our day of action. This Thursday, we start in the morning at 9:30 in the church across the street from the Capitol. And this is a moment where we center our stories as regular people about what happened and what has happened in Minnesota, and how do we need a government that use our experiences to create policies, regulations, and projects that will benefit working families across the board.
Thank you so much. We've been talking with Amelia Gonzalez-Avalos, who is the executive director of Unidos Minnesota. You are so busy. Thank you for sharing some of your time with us this afternoon. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, and hope this is not the last time.
Definitely not. You're listening to The Gailey Show. We'll be right back after this quick break.
Would you let animals pick your insurance? Do you really need to experience mayhem to get the best rates? Or how about a celebrity quarterback or fake university saving you money? There's a lot of marketing stunts when it comes to insurance, but what you really need is someone looking out for you. Call Array Insurance, and they will work hard to find you the best insurance coverage and rates. So avoid gimmicks and call Cheryl at Array, 763-504-3067, or arrayinsurance.com. Array Insurance, working hard for you.
Hi, this is Frank Brown of Minuteman Press Uptown with a question for our listeners. How important are business values to you? When you need high-quality digital print, it matters who you work with. You see, Minuteman Uptown is unique. We're one of the only union print shops in Minnesota providing our team with living wages and benefits. We believe in second chances for justice-impacted individuals who want to contribute to the community, and we are active in local issues. We've been in the streets standing up for racial, social, and economic justice. At Minuteman Uptown, our mission is to connect all communities through technology-driven print solutions. An example of that mission is when I moved Minuteman Uptown to North Minneapolis. We're invested in this local community, and we help small businesses and local organizations throughout the Twin Cities reach their audiences. Reach out to Minuteman Uptown and partner with a printer that shares your values. Call us today at 612-870-0777 or visit us at mpuptown.com. That's mpuptown.com.
Hearts and beliefs collide in the poignant comedy, The Cake, playing at Theater in the Round. Della is a talented Southern baker whose life changes when she's asked to create a wedding cake for her late best friend's daughter, who's marrying a woman. The production offers a tender and funny look at the complex intersection of faith and family. The cake runs February 20th through March 15th at Theater in the Round. Tickets and more information at theaterintheround.org.
Lewis Black, live.
When I was in elementary school, then I was like 9. And the teacher said, in case of a nuclear attack, get under your desk. And I said, why would I do that? And she said, because you'll burn faster.
Don't miss this chance to see the legendary Lewis Black. It's like spotting a unicorn. Live in the Mystic Showroom Friday, May 1st. Get tickets now at the Mystic box office or online at mysticlake.com.
Hey, Francois, have you made any New Year's resolutions?
Non.
Well, mine is to learn some French. Can you help me?
Bien sûr.
How do you say this? Can I buy you?
Est-ce que je peux t'acheter
Macaroons from Nicolette's.
des macarons de Nicolette?
Now, say it all at once.
Est-ce que je peux t'acheter des macarons de Nicolette?
Oh, absolutely. I'll have a box of raspberry rose, blueberry cheesecake, and chocolate.
Mais c'est quoi ça?
Thank you, Francois. You can order them online at nicoletsmacaroons.com or visit their store in Plymouth. Merci.
Welcome back to the Gailey Show. I'm John Parker. We're coming up on the bottom of the hour. For folks in Minneapolis, we just heard an advertisement for Lewis Black coming to Minnesota, and it broke Jim.
It was just,
the
line. It's not that the joke is so funny, but his delivery, the acid in his delivery is just unbelievable.
That's pretty good. All right. So we have been talking about Operation Metro Surge here today. There was an event on Friday. So 3 days ago, healthcare workers were calling on hospitals to remain sensitive spaces that are free from immigration enforcement disruption. So this was a coalition of frontline providers and representatives who had a press conference and an event. These are folks from the Minnesota Nurses Association, the SEIU Healthcare Minnesota and Iowa, SEIU's Council of Interns and Residents. There are a variety of speakers there, including Minneapolis City Council member Jason Chavez and Minnesota State Representative Ankam Mahmoud. Sorry about that. Who was talking about forthcoming legislation. And I think that, it's really important to know, and I want to remind folks of an incident that happened here where ICE brought in an individual to a hospital, to Hennepin County Medical Center, and told them that he ran into a wall. And that was to describe the injuries that he had, which included fragments of his bone, his facial bone, skull in his brain.
Yeah.
Right. And all the doctors and the nurses were like, this would be laughable, but the situation was so intense. And they had to deal with the ICE agents trying to shackle him to his bed because they claimed that he was a flight risk. This was the level of, this is just one example
Right.
of ICE assaulting an individual, dangerously so, on the precipice of endangering their life, which they have obviously killed multiple people. We found out about another one over the weekend, a third person that they shot and killed. But here was an instance where, they were interacting with, and we want hospitals and healthcare systems to be safe spaces. And Jim, I want to bring you in here real quick, but they put out a list of demands. They shared a list of demands that Fairview employees had shared with their leadership a few weeks ago. And these are our demands that include: do not use shackles, physical or chemical restraints unless deemed medically necessary per the healthcare team. Do not utilize ICE agents as healthcare surrogates or decision makers, nor as healthcare interpreters. I mean, can you imagine? Do not discharge the patient to ICE detention
Right.
centers if there is a reasonable expectation that the patient will need acute medical, nursing, or rehabilitative care to treat an
Right.
acute ailment. Do not share protected health information with ICE officers. Educating healthcare personnel on a patient's rights in ICE-related civil detention, because when they come in there, they're, as Amelia said before the break, shock doctrine. If you haven't read that book by Naomi Klein, I really, recommend it. But when they come in there and they're coming in loud and hard and they're shocking people, unless you know your rights in that moment, it's hard. It's easy to just get bowled over, right, by them. And so this was a really important press conference and event, and I wanted to highlight it for folks of ways that there are best practices here for how to deal with ICE agents. And I really encourage people to connect with the folks, in Aegis, Minnesota, organized this. It was at mHealth Fairview, University of Minnesota's Medical Center this past Friday, and the work continues. The work continues. Jim, your thoughts?
Well, it concerns me that back before Trump was an issue and there was such disrespect for the truth, which, started with Fox and all of that. But there was a time when all these kinds of things would have been reported, maybe not in the moment, but you had some confidence that we would eventually get an idea of the scale of anything, of any disaster, of any calamity. We would get a sense of the scale of it because the desire for truth telling was more important than personal interest. And now when I hear about this gentleman or the kid that was killed months ago on South Padre Island in Texas,
and they deliberately hid the evidence,
or people that we're seeing we're seeing a tiny fraction. A few people have committed suicide in these detention centers. We're seeing a tiny, tiny fraction of what I believe, but can't prove,
they claim
has
suicide.
Actually happened.
And Jim is referencing a very specific case at the Dilley Detention Center in Texas, where they claim an individual died of suicide, but other detainees, not inmates, other detainees, John, were saying, wait a minute, what are you talking about? That's not what happened here. So,
but what I want people to consider when we have a piece of a sliver of information, there's a factor, a multiplication factor of all of these things. People who have been injured, people who have had their homes damaged, people who have had their businesses damaged, people that have, been abused in all kinds of different ways. So you might hear about 3 instances, multiply that times 100 or multiply it times some factor and realize the scale of the suffering at one building in Minneapolis might horrify you. What should horrify all of us is all the people that have literally been disappeared, gay people who've been sent to countries that will kill them when they get there. So virtually killing them indirectly by where they're sending them. And this is happening on a scale that we don't even know because airlines are taking the contracts to fly these people wherever, and terrible things are happening and we don't know about it. And that's what scares me, the unknown. Will we ever know? And how big is what we don't know?
Well, and I think it's really important to heed the words that Amelia shared with us before the break, which I'm still just sort of sitting with right now, is that, should we be considering this drawdown as an end, or rather a pause so that they can get their funding from DHS and to reopen DHS, because it's in a partial shutdown right now, to get through the midterm elections? If they retain control of Congress, and we know now that Congress will not be any type of check or balance on this administration, that we will just see all of this happen all over again, because they'll take that as a green light. Like, look, we did it and everybody voted for us all over again, and we still have the House and we still have the Senate. So let's just go back there and do that. That is a very scary proposition here. And I think that we need to really sit with that right now, because I think we want to believe, particularly folks here in Minnesota, because it has been so egregious and so stressful for the past 70 plus days. We want to believe that Operation Metro Surge has ended, but we need to listen to the leaders on the ground here. And when Amelia is telling us, as the executive director of Aegis, Minnesota, we should be considering this a pause until there are political consequences, until the House is taken, both in St. Paul and in Washington, D.C., until the Senate is taken in the U.S. Senate in November. Sorry, I see our next guest has just popped up into the into the chat, and it has to do with the U.S. Senate. So we're going to take a break here. I have to fit in a quick break. We're going to have a guest who is running for U.S. Senate in Alabama, Mr. Dakarai Larriett. We're going to talk with him about his campaign, and it's X number of months, weeks until we get there. So you're listening to The Gailey Show on AM 950 Radio, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk. More after this break.
Hey, Minnesota, it's Brad Friedman, your friend.
Mr. Larriett, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Oh, great. Everything seems to be working. Fantastic. It is great to see you again.
Good to be back. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, we will switch back right now. Same thing as last time. We'll switch back over to the commercials. And if you have any questions for us, you can just use the private chat on the right-hand side of your screen. Perfect. Thank you.
Impacted individuals who want to contribute to the community. And we are active in local issues. We've been in the streets standing up for racial, social, and economic justice. At Minuteman Uptown, our mission is to connect all communities through technology-driven print solutions. An example of that mission is when I moved Minuteman Uptown to North Minneapolis. We're invested in this local community, and we help small businesses and local organizations throughout the Twin Cities reach their audiences. Reach out to Minuteman Uptown and partner with a printer that shares your values. Call us today at 612-870-0777 or visit us at mpuptown.com. That's mpuptown.com.
This is Chad, owner of AM 950. I've been telling you about my friends at Snap Construction, who are arguably the most well-reviewed exterior construction company in the metro. Don't just take my word for it. Take a look at all their reviews online. Winter is the most cost-effective time of the year to complete your construction project. A majority of Minnesotans choose to have their work completed on their home in the summer when they should be enjoying the weather. As a result, the demand for labor in the summer is much higher. The most cost-effective way to improve or restore your home is in the winter due to the lower demand. Right now, Snap Construction is offering an additional 30% off of labor to the AM 950 listeners on your next construction project between now and the end of February. Call 612-333-SNAP and mention AM 950 for an additional 30% off. As always, Snap Construction stands by their work with a lifetime craftsmanship warranty. Don't wait to get a free estimate by calling 612-333-SNAP or find them online at snapconstruction.com. Financing options available.
Step into Forts, a fort-building wonderland at Children's Theater Company through April 5th. Theatrical elements, evolving light and soundscapes, and towers of cardboard boxes set the scene for creative play. Build the tallest fort, the longest fort, or tons of cozy little forts. Design a castle or a neighborhood. Your imagination leads the way as you play freely and create shared stories together in real life. Forts at CTC through April 5th. Spring break weekdays available. Tickets at childrenstheater.org.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Today, sunshine with a high of 21, then tonight, cloudy with a low of 17. The Great Wall has been your home for Chinese favorites since 1981. Don't miss the sesame chicken, mushu pork with Chinese pancakes, or Peking duck. Stop in at the restaurant on France Avenue and 45th Street along the Minneapolis-Edina City line, or check them out at greatwallrestaurant.us. You're listening to AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Coming to you from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and airing on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Welcome back to The Gailey Show. We are 33 minutes after the hour, also live streaming on our YouTube channel right now. And if you like what we are doing, click that subscribe button and let us know how you like our show, particularly this upcoming segment. Very pleased to be continuing our coverage of the 2026 election. Right now, we are pleased to be joined by our next guest, Mr. Dakarai Larriett. Mr. Larriett is the son of a U.S. Army veteran, a successful entrepreneur, longtime community volunteer, lifelong Democrat, and above all, a proud Alabama native, Mr. Larriett is deeply committed to serving the citizens of his home state. His extensive volunteer experience includes work with United Way, Meals on Wheels, and the Humane Society, as well as leading the board representing the 60 families and businesses located in Mercantile on Morris, a mixed-use development in downtown Birmingham. He has held corporate executive positions, is a business owner, and also the author of Don't Flush: From a False Arrest to a Political Awakening, My Journey to Making a Difference. Mr. Larriett, welcome back to The Daily Show.
Thank you. I want to meet that person. He sounds amazing.
He said, "That's great."
Luckily, our listeners and viewers get to do just that right now. So tell us about your campaign. The primary is on May 19th. 2026, folks, in Alabama. The last day to register to vote is May 4th.
Yes.
Talk to us about your campaign, the state of it right now, and the platform, and what you're running on.
It's coming up quickly,
It
and
is.
we cannot rule out any state. You know, we have to flip 4 seats federally if we want to take back our Senate and put some controls around the tyrant at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And we can't rule out any state, even Alabama. And let me tell you about the state of things here in Alabama. I need your help. My leading opponent in the primary is someone who routinely makes transphobic comments and is a very poor representation of Democrats. And we suspect that there is a trick happening behind the scenes to get this man as our nominee. So we are making every attempt we can to build a coalition so we can win this in May 19th and then ultimately win the seat.
By any chance, I have a question, because Republicans have done this in a lot of states where they put up some rich guy from someplace else who gets an apartment in a place and pretends to be from there. That's Ron Johnson, who's one of the worst people in the United States Senate, lives in Florida. He's not from Wisconsin. So
Jim is a Wisconsin resident.
That's
You
why
can
I'm
tell
so
that
passionate about it. Is a similar situation here, or can you not say?
Well, what I can say is the individual's background does not align with our values. Someone who voted for Trump 3 times should not be a nominee for the Democratic ticket or for US Senate.
Right.
And that's why I'm campaigning so hard to protect all Alabamians.
Yep. Okay.
That's wild. I think it's also interesting to me seeing how, when we look at the gubernatorial campaign of Winsome Earl Sears in Virginia last year, and how MS Now was reporting that like 57% of her advertising was about, hating trans people, and she lost in a landslide like that. Those politics are no one does that. That does, like, voters don't care about that right now. So it's wild to me that you have a candidate in a Democratic primary that is trying to make that an issue. Is that what's going on there?
Exactly. Just really trying to gather that far right wing base. And the issues are really simple. We've polled and spoken to thousands of Alabamians. It is about kitchen table, it's education, healthcare, and the economy. And that's what I'm building plans to do. And that's what's resonating with the base.
Mm-hmm. Talk to us about the affordability issue, the kitchen table issues in Alabama, because I heard a certain president over the weekend say that he won affordability. Like, he just magically won it. And so I'm like, well, wait a minute. Thankfully, we have a Senate candidate coming on Monday. We can unpack that. So from an Alabama's perspective, what are those issues looking like? And did the president win on this?
Well, I think resolutely not. And in Alabama, we have some unique challenges. We have a very low participation rate in our workforce because people can't get to work. You have to have a car. And in my county, it's something like 2% of people use public transit to get to work. So that's one of the first things we need to tackle is getting transportation. And then, of course, making sure it's affordable, childcare, elder care. These are all things that keep people out of the workforce. And then one of the issues that's made national news is really our utility costs. We have some of the highest utility costs in the nation, and it's due to corporate interest running the providers. So these are all things that we are fighting against here in Alabama.
Do you see how are the tariffs playing out? Because obviously with the Supreme Court decision on Friday, tariffs is the major story that a lot of folks are talking about right now. How have the tariffs been impacting Alabama?
Well, I'm a business owner. My Canada business is dried up. It is so expensive and confusing, and the regulatory piece, it's just not even worth it. And what I hear as I travel the state, remember, we're an agricultural state. Soybeans are one of our biggest crops. So that industry has been decimated thanks to the on and off again tariffs and the fact that China finally just decided to source soybeans from other countries. So we are suffering here, and I feel like it's a ticking time bomb that will see the full effect of maybe next year or later in the year. It's going to take a little bit of time, but I'm also hearing about people with healthcare premium policies that have quadrupled. So again, it's a ticking time bomb.
The healthcare issue, I wanted to ask you about that because we have there's a large rural population here in Minnesota, also a huge soybean state. How are folks dealing with the cancellation of the subsidies for the Affordable Care Act? I mean, here in Minnesota, we have seen participation rates plummet. Like people have just been like, I can't afford it, so I'm not even going to try to get insurance. So I'm just going to go uninsured right now. What have you been seeing on the healthcare insurance front related to the ACA and the lack of no more subsidies?
Mhm. Well, yeah, actually, I went up to Washington and protested that bill, the big billionaire bill, alongside Representative Waters. And I knew that was going to be a problem for our state. We've already lost so many rural hospitals. We have 67 counties, 62 already don't have enough medical providers. So what I'm seeing and hearing on the ground is folks are going without. And it's February, so that's the first month, but by the end of the year, people not getting the care they need, that is going to be catastrophic. And let me leave you with another statistic. We are number one in maternal mortality for Black women, number three for women overall. We're going to start to see these horrible healthcare outcomes affect all of the population, I would say by the end of the year.
We are talking with Mr. Dakarai Larriett, who is the candidate for U.S. Senate in Alabama. The primary is on May 19th. One more question on the healthcare front. Something we've been seeing here in Greater Minnesota and around us, the states around us, the Dakotas, Iowa, Wisconsin, is that there are entire counties or clusters of counties that don't have OBGYNs, that don't have specific types of providers anymore. That if you want to have a baby, you have to travel an hour, 90 minutes, 2 hours to find a doctor who will work with you. Is that happening also in Alabama?
Yes, especially in what we call the Black Belt. That's the kind of western part of the state, very rural, very kind of focused on forestry. Yes, that's been the case for years for us. So it's only going to get worse. And what I tell people in the urban environments like Birmingham, where I live, and Huntsville, is these folks are going to now be traveling into our communities. So our healthcare is going to be overrun. When I tried to get a doctor's appointment when I first moved back to the state, it was 9 months for a primary care visit, 9 months for a non-emergency visit. So that was several years ago. So imagine now.
That's wild.
It's rough.
Part of if the Democrats take over the U.S. Senate in November, sworn in January, is being able to hold this administration accountable. How do you see, if you were elected, your role in that to hold the Trump administration to account to the law and to Supreme Court decisions?
True oversight. So I think about, there's so many things to think about, but the legal strikes in, 10 countries over the last year, it's like one every single month. We have got to be consulted and provide consent for war, formal war, but at the very least, provided a heads up that we're taking these actions. And then I think about the tariff piece. We've got to use every lever we have, the public stage as well as the courts, to ensure that our Article 1 powers are not overrun. That's going to be key. But we've got to build a sense of urgency with the public, help them understand what's happening, and really translate it so that they can adjust and understand.
Tomorrow is the State of the Union. I know a lot of folks are, there's a lot of things. There's always a lot of ideas of what the Democrats should do. Some folks are saying go and then walk out. Some people are saying don't even go right in the first place. What would you like to see between now and November now next January, where ideally there is there's a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate. What would you like to see the Democratic Party doing over the next 11 months?
Well, the rates of satisfaction with the Congress are very low. We've got to always find ways in which we can work together. And I'm coming from what many people would call a red state. So folks here are going to expect me to work with this administration no matter what to get something done for them. I think healthcare is one of those areas that the administration has shown some action on, specifically around prescription drugs. So I will continue to work on that. Certainly keeping ourselves safe. Huntsville is a major piece of our defense. There are areas that we can work on, but we do have to act like an opposition party. And there are so many areas that we can show opposition on.
Something obviously that's top of mind for us here in Minnesota is ICE. And for our listeners in Chicago, they got through theirs, but they're still seeing, when we talk to our news partners in Chicago, they're still seeing the effects of that. And ICE continues to lead raids and detain people, often in very physically violent ways in Chicago. How do you see what would you like to see done with that administration? Some folks think that the body cams and new training materials are going to be the solution here, and some folks are like, no, we have to just basically start over with how we're going to enforce immigration in the country. Where do you land on that particular ideological spectrum?
Well, this is a failed organization that has lost the public trust. And we've been able to manage immigration enforcement without ICE. It's a relatively new organization. It's about 20 years old. So definitely the leaders have got to go. It needs to be rebuilt, completely rebuilt. And we can do immigration in an ethical and humane way. And what you all are going through is absolutely horrible. It shows a lack of due process and a lack of empathy.
Right now, there's a hearing happening in the House where an individual who was a legal counsel and a trainer for ICE is actually testifying that new agents were being trained to ignore Fourth Amendment rights. I mean, it's just it's wild here when folks think that body cam. I mean, I'm going to get into a little editorial right now, but the idea that body cameras and some new training materials are going to be the thing that fixes this agency, I agree with you, Mr. Larriett. It's going to take a lot more to fix ICE and DHS right now. I also want to ask about another major issue that Congress unanimously, who knew we'd get something unanimous out of this Congress, demanded that the DOJ release the Epstein files. We have seen partial compliance at best. And I'm noticing I'm being flagged that we have to go into a break here. Can I keep you?
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Because I also have questions about your book that I also want to ask you about. So we are here with Mr. Dakarai Larriett, who is a candidate for U.S. Senate in Alabama. The primary election is on May 19th. The last day to register to vote is May 4th. And I'm seeing here you need to present identification, but your ID does not have to match your residential address. And the way that voting is going here, we always have to give as many instructions as possible to folks. So we are going to take a break here. We're going to have more with Mr. Larriett when we come back. We're going to talk about his book, Don't Flush: From a False Arrest to Political Awakening, My Journey to Making a Difference. And we're also going to talk about the Epstein files. You're listening to The Gailey Show on AM 950 Radio, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and WCPT 820 Chicago's Progressive Talk, where facts matter. More after this break.
As farmers and ranchers, stewardship of the land comes naturally. Your work keeps our water clean, improves the soil, and enhances wildlife habitat. It also provides countless benefits, not just for you and your family, but for millions of Americans who depend on this region every day without even realizing it. Thank you for being stewards of America's prairie for all of us. Take a moment to find out how conservation pays. Visit conservationpays.org.
Hi,
My name is Katrina, and I'm the Community Program Specialist at the Institute on Community Integration at the University of Minnesota. We have a podcast called Boldly Challenging Ableism. We look at issues being faced by the disabled community, and for each episode, I interview someone about a topic, and we talk about why it matters and how it could change for the better. Season 2 is about to come out. If you haven't heard Season 1, that's okay. Season 2 is better, and it's not in a sequence. Plus, I won't even know. It will be on Sundays at 2 p.m. right here on AM 950.
A shortage of engineers is projected in the future when the demand for engineered solutions will be at an all-time high. Engineering offers an exciting and rewarding career but requires strong math and science skills. Parents, help your children by encouraging them to visit www.e-week.org. This announcement is brought to you by the engineers and staff with Sather Bergquist Engineering, proud sponsors of National Engineers Week. That's e-week.org.
This is Chad, owner of AM 950. I've been telling you about my friends at Snap Construction, who are arguably the most well-reviewed exterior construction company in the metro. Don't just take my word for it. Take a look at all their reviews online. Winter is the most cost-effective time of the year to complete your construction project. A majority of Minnesotans choose to have their work completed on their home in the summer when they should be enjoying the weather. As a result, the demand for labor in the summer is much higher. The most cost-effective way to improve or restore your home is in the winter due to the lower demand. Right now, Snap Construction is offering an additional 30% off of labor to the AM 950 listeners on your next construction project between now and the end of February. Call 612-333-SNAP and mention AM 950 for an additional 30% off. As always, Snap Construction stands by their work with a lifetime craftsmanship warranty. Don't wait to get a free estimate by calling 612-333-SNAP. or find them online at snapconstruction.com. Financing options available.
What if I told you that toxic pesticides from crop seeds and lawns have spread all over Minnesota's lands and water, devastating wildlife and posing risks to our health? Well, it's true. But a coalition of Minnesota farmers, community members, anglers, and more are taking action to protect our state from neurotoxic pesticides. To learn more and get involved, visit cleanerseed.org. That's cleanerseed.org. And tune to Food Freedom Radio.
Welcome back to The Daily Show. We are coming up on the top of the hour. I'm John Parker in studio with my executive producer, Jim Pounds. We are here with Mr. Dakarai Larriett, who is a candidate for the U.S. Senate in Alabama. Reminder, Alabama's primary election is on May 19th. Before the break, set up a big question here. Congress unanimously passed the act saying release the Epstein files. We've gotten maybe 50% of them. And last week, House leaders saying that there is testimony or evidence in there that there's allegations of him assaulting a teenager. Jim likes to call them the Trump-Epstein files. So, Mr. Larriett, how would you approach this issue if you are elected in November?
Same way I'm doing it now as a candidate. I opened my speech last week saying we have a pedophile at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. We've got to be aggressive about this. I think so much has been thrown at us that we're almost like unable to even digest and talk about it. There's so many crazy, crazy allegations, the baby eating and things of that nature, that it's almost like we're embarrassed to talk about it. But until there's a proper investigation, these allegations are sitting with the FBI. We've got to get this out there.
This is the most brazen Department of Justice that I've seen in my lifetime. I'm not even a lawyer, but when I watched that testimony, the hearing a week ago or 2 weeks ago with Pam Bondi, Attorney General, where she's screaming about the Dow Jones.
$50,000, yeah. Completely out of her mind. And gosh, the lack of empathy. And I think there were some fair questions. I want to be balanced here. Why wasn't action taken sooner? But the reality is she had a year. She had a year, and she actually had a mandate from Congress to do right by these victims.
Well, and also my understanding is that this was also something that she could have prosecuted as the Attorney General of Florida.
Exactly.
Not do it.
And that's a very good point. That was in her jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Okay, I want to ask you about your book because this is also what you document in your book is also one of the main reasons why you are running. The book is Don't Flush: From a False Arrest to a Political Awakening, My Journey to Making a Difference. Tell us about your book, sir.
Yeah, so book's doing great. Just did a presentation to a Democratic group here in Birmingham just today. And we're using it as a way to introduce myself to the community. And my journey for justice is what inspired me from a wrongful arrest to realizing that what fuels our broken criminal justice system, and you guys are seeing it right up there in Minnesota, is a lack of investment in education, healthcare, in our economy. And frankly, when the government just does not believe in the rule of law. So I've been talking about this up and down the state. People are really resonating with it. I was just at a campaign event and someone bought a whole case to give out to their community. Book clubs are starting to pick up the book. So it's a really good way to talk about the issue, humanize me, and then talk about what happens next. And that is the legislation that I'm proposing, the Motorist Bill of Rights, which protects all of us in our interactions with the police. It talks about body cams. It talks about how this evidence needs to be uploaded to a neutral third-party cloud where we can access it, where public defenders can access it, and hold law enforcement accountable because they should be protecting us, not spinning video to protect themselves.
Mm-hmm. I think when folks hear the word, like the first two words of your title, "Don't Flush," they're like, "What?" Unpack that part of the title because that's a crucial part of what happened to you after you were arrested in Michigan.
Yeah, it was humiliating. And these experiences are traumatic. So, in a nutshell, I was wrongfully arrested, accused of driving under the influence of alcohol, accused of driving under the influence of drugs, accused of trafficking drugs by way of ingestion, forced to use the restroom in the booking area in the open from the troopers and the booking officers and other inmates, and yelled at by Trooper Kenya, "Don't flush." And yeah, that's your neighboring state, Michigan, where that happened, Michigan State Police. And these troopers remain fully employed, fully employed. And thanks to qualified immunity. And that is something that I'm campaigning against. We cannot have any right or law be absolute. And it's gotten to that point now. You may have heard the new Back the Blue Act is making its way through the House. They have brought it back for 2023. This is going to expand qualified immunity throughout the nation, and it's going to get to a point where we have no rights as citizens.
Well, and they claim that ICE or agents already have it, total and complete immunity. Jim, I know you had a question.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm curious how, I don't know how Alabama, and maybe you were going to ask this, John, too, about how this works with the primary. If whatever the outcome is that a final resolution of this is the one Democrat that can be on the ballot, or can you?
Is it a runoff?
Is it a runoff, or do you get the nomination, or how does it work?
So here in Alabama, you need to get 50% plus one vote.
Yeah.
That wins the primary. If no one gets that 50% plus one vote, there's a runoff in June. And then, of course, we have the general election in November.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So a two-part. Yeah. In Minnesota, there's the convention, and there's the party nomination process, and then you can still run every state. It's just we're trying, as we're looking at 2026, we're like, okay, how do we get all of these?
So are there are four Democratic candidates that'll get down to two? And
so or hopefully I'll win the primary full out. So I qualified in January, raised my first $100,000. That's the hardest. And frankly, it's very, very difficult as a Democrat in this state to raise money. So a lot of it has come from places like Minnesota, California, New York. Folks see and believe in the vision and know that we have to win those 4 seats federally if we want to take back the Senate.
And how do folks, we're coming up at the end of our time here, how do folks connect with you if they want to donate and learn more about your campaign?
DakariLarriett.com and click Get Involved. If you want to volunteer, phone bank, you can do that from anywhere in the United States. And of course, you can donate from anywhere in the United States. And check us out on social media as well, Dakari Larriett for Senate.
Perfect. Reminder, the primary election is on May 19th. Last day to register to vote is May 4th. Mr. Larriett, thank you so much again for taking the time to be with us here today.
Thank you so much.
All right, folks. Up next on WCPT is Democracy Now! Here in Minneapolis on AM 950 Radio. It is the Matt McNeil Show. Stay tuned after that for Native Roots Radio. And then at 10 p.m. Central, step into the unknown with Greg Bakken on Ghost Box Radio. And until this time tomorrow, keep it queer, America.
Keep it queer.